Hey, Andrea St. Amand here. Today, I want to talk about shame and fear, and here is why. So yesterday, I was in meditation, and a spirit came in and gave me some. What I was trying to do was like really kind of feel like, all right, what do I need to work on? What do I need to release so that I can like keep my vibration going higher and higher and higher? And what came up was go to your shame. Like the spirit literally said, go to your shame. And I was like, oh, who wants to go to their shame? And I had to think about that. And I was like, oh, wow. So I want to talk about this with you guys. And then also I'm going to give you an exercise at the end to do with me. And yeah, so I was thinking about shame, and I was like, how does shame come up? What even is shame? And so many of us are afraid. So many of us are afraid to face something we're ashamed of, or we're afraid to face. We're afraid to even go there. We're afraid to even look at what we might be ashamed of. And I see this coming up in two separate areas. One for me, I see this has come up for me personally, but I also have seen this with other people. Is just like being afraid to even address a problem. So think back to a time in your life when I think most of us alive have had some form of counseling or therapy at this point, or gone to the doctor or something, where you've been, there's an issue. And there's this resistance, right? There's all this resistance to facing the issue, to getting help with the issue. There's just, and how many of us stay in that kind of icky, uncomfortable spot for a long time because we're like, I don't want to face it. It's going to get worse. So many of us are afraid to do self-work, afraid to address an issue, afraid, whether it's medical or mental or emotional, because we think if I do it, I'm going to be opening that can of worms and it's going to get worse. It's just going to be worse. And or I don't want to change because what if things change for the worst? And a friend of mine gave me the example yesterday. It's like, it's about removing a fence that's blocking a beautiful view. And I went with that and I thought, oh my gosh, think of like if you remember there's a gorgeous view on the other side of that fence. But when you're in your spot, the fence is like 10 feet tall. And what do? Rather than tear down the fence so we can see the view, we start getting in our heads. We really start being like, oh, wait, maybe the view is not as beautiful as I remember it being. Maybe the view is bad now. Maybe there's like a landfill on the other side of that fence. Maybe it's terrible. Or, maybe I'll just build a new fence. Let's go buy a new fence, maybe a different kind of fence that I can kind of peek through every now and then. It's too hot today to take down fence. We come up with all these reasons not to face something we know is an issue, right? And I think it's because we are so afraid, and we're afraid. And I think that fear, underlying that fear, is actually shame-based. I think we're afraid when we let me stick with the fence analogy for just a second. We're afraid if we take down that fence and the view is worse on the other side, that for some reason we were wrong to take down the fence in the first place, right? And so, but I was like, so what? So what if we're wrong? But so many of us are ashamed of being wrong. We're ashamed. We're ashamed that there's something wrong with us. And I think that not just being wrong, but there's something wrong with us that's making us wrong. And that really comes up when we're dealing with self-work, when we're turning that view of ourselves inward and looking deep inside of ourselves. So many people don't even want to go there because they're ashamed. They're afraid of what they're going to see, and they're afraid that there's going to and wow, I wish I could take that away from all of us. Like, so I kept grappling with this yesterday. I went a little bit deeper, like, well, what would we be ashamed of? And that's what got me to this thing of like, somehow we put an expectation on ourselves that if we do something, we have to be right. We can't be wrong. We have to be perfect. We have to, and we can't be vulnerable. The vulnerability is a big deal. It's like we're ashamed if we're vulnerable. And a lot of us sensitive people, we have been victimized in some way or another. So we never want to feel that vulnerability ever again. And I get that. But it's like for some reason there's a shame in a perceived weakness. There's a shame attached to a beginner mind, right? And that just can't, if I hope like if you guys tap into this and resonate with this yourself, that you feel like, wow, there's no shame in not being an expert. There's no shame in not being perfect. And in fact, I don't know why any of us think we have to be perfect. It's impossible for us to be perfect. It is actually impossible. We are not made to be perfect. Why on earth do we have in our minds that we have to be perfect? And therefore, a lot of us won't take an action. We won't make a change because we're afraid if we do, we're not going to be good at it. We're not going to be perfect at that thing that we really want. So it's impossible to be perfect. So go for it anyway. And I see a lot of people holding back from their desire. I see a lot of people not even allowing themselves desire at all because they're afraid if they desire something, well, what if I don't get it? Or what if I try it and I suck at it? So what? You're never going to desire anything that you can't do on some level. And so what if you're not perfect? You know, there's no shame in that. So I just want to address that because I was just so I I was really surprised with myself how much little tidbits of shame are attaching to me in weird places that might be holding me back. And if that's the case with me, it's definitely the case with all of you all too. So I want to let's all go to our shame, okay? Just for a second. I don't want anybody to end up in the like spiraling down and end up in the ER tonight. But I do like, these are areas that you can like totally face. This is like your dark side. It's not going to be some big shadowy monster that's going to get you. It's yourself. It's your own stuff. And once we can define something, we can define an incident, we can find a feeling, we define an energy, we can get our hands around it and we can start dealing with it, and it's not so overwhelming. We can take that thing and have a therapy session, or we can take that thing and have like a counseling session with our, you know, with someone we trust, with a mentor or something. But so many folks don't, they're like afraid to address it to begin with. So let's together, because I'm going to name a few of myself that are coming up. Let's go to our shame. So shame, to me, what would I feel shamed of? The perfection thing is definitely comes up. Like, oh, I don't want to try. I don't want to put myself out there to do a different type of reading because what if I'm wrong? So I don't want to tell people this thing because what if they look at me funny or they think I'm flaky? That's a big one for me, like people thinking I'm flaky. And you know what? Because for some reason I'm ashamed of being flaky, who cares? I got to let that go. There's definitely, I've mentioned this before in here, there's a shame that it can be attached to us thinking we're not making enough money. Big time there. There's a shame attached in a lot of us that actually came up with me and my mediumship work. So I don't know if you guys know my kind of story. I started thinking I was going to be a medium because that was more my natural ability, but I ended up doing more Akashic record stuff, more psychic work, which is, and more just pure energy work. And I just stayed in that lane because I was like, oh, now I can't get back out and be a medium because that's a new thing and I'm not going to be as good at it. I'm not going to be as perfect at it. But you know what? That's where all the healing comes from. But I have so many people too, so many clients that have been like, I've been watching you for a long time. I was kind of afraid to come. I was afraid of what was going to come up in me because it would be me shining a spotlight onto their own issues. But you know what? It's great. It's perfect. Let's shine those spotlights onto things in us that we can like lovingly, compassionately get each other through so we're not alone. Because I think all of us are carrying around this big open hole of shame and vulnerability. The vulnerability thing, oh man, oh well, I didn't finish my thought on mediumship. On mediumship, I expected, because I was already working professionally in one area, I kind of expected myself to be in a specific spot with mediumship, and because I wasn't, there was all this vulnerability I had to work through for like months and months and months. And then finally I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be perfect. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to fall flat on my face. Like, I might not like it. It's not going to be comfortable, but I don't have to be ashamed of that. You know, having that beginner mind, having that vulnerability. Think of other things we might be ashamed of. So I come from a past of childhood sexual abuse. Lots of shame there. Lots of shame with my body. I don't have that anymore, but that was something like I couldn't go to therapy over until I was in my 30s, y'all. It was like 30, early 30s, before I had the strength to face that shame that I was carrying around from something somebody else did to me. It wasn't a child, it wasn't my fault, but there was so much shame in there. So I know there's shame in failed relationships. There's shame when we find ourselves in an abusive relationship or an emotionally abusive relationship, and that gets really complicated. So if this is connecting with you, like, sit with that, write it down, make a list of like, you know what, I'm going to go to my shame, I'm going to sit there and be like, why am I ashamed of this. There's a shame with a sense of failure. We don't have to have that. We can fail. It's okay. We can make mistakes. We can fail. We can be wrong. We can be not perfect. We can it's all okay. We can still push ourselves to work through it. But what we can't do, I don't think, what we shouldn't do is ignore it and avoid everything. We shouldn't just go into avoidance mode and not even allow ourselves to face what we might consider something dark inside of ourselves, or what we might consider a place of vulnerability, or something we just really don't like about ourselves. Let's face it. Let's face it, because you're probably, once you get it out, you're probably going to be like, actually, it's not so bad after all, or at least you're going to know what to start working through. I know a lot of us have a shame too about like the way we might have treated somebody, or I think honestly though, I think everything goes back to that one sense of vulnerability and failure, that we weren't perfect. So I want to give you all permission. Go to your shame. Go right to your shame, sit in it, and give yourself permission to be like, I don't have to be perfect with that issue. I don't have to be right all the time. And I am, though, going to make a commitment to do the best I can with as much self-knowledge and authenticity as I can. So I just wanted, I know it's kind of like a big topic, like shame and fear, and it's a little bit unwieldy, and I'll probably have more stuff to talk about that with before or later. But if anybody needs help, obviously reach out, book a reading with me of any type, of any kind, and let's like work very lovingly on these energetic things together. You're not alone, and the healing that can come out of this is just amazing. So I want to say hi to Beth, hi to Jared. Yeah, thank you guys for being here, and I will talk with you soon. Leave any questions down in the comments. That's it. I'll probably do another video once my thinking gets a little more clear on this subject. All right, bye.